This is Eric from Pack Hacker, and today we're going to be talking about the Lume Cube Panel Go, which I've been testing for the past 3 weeks. Let's dive in. So I've got it still in the box here because this is actually how I normally carry it with me. As someone who commutes to and from work every day, and my main job is not photography, but I like having a camera with me all the time. I don't have a camera bag with me all the time. So this box is nice because I can just slide it into my bag, and it's protected. It's a pretty hard cardboard box, so I know that it's protected no matter where, and switching bags between reviews, you don't always have a good place to put stuff. So I kept it in this box pretty much the entire time, except for on trips where I took a camera bag and it slotted in. But we will open it up here, and this is the light itself. Right now it's got the little case on it, which also acts as like a diffuser for the light, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But this is the light. It's kind of hard to see the details because we have lots of lights here to make the videos look nice, but when you're showcasing a light, it's kind of hard to see the details of the light because of all the lights. But as you can see there, that's the actual light. It's kind of hard to see the little details, but there's little light panels all throughout. They're kind of yellow, but once you turn the light on, you obviously can't see that. And then on the back here, we've got the Lume Cube logo, and then all of the battery information and stuff like that. Then a little LCD screen here, which is nice because I've used lights before where they're battery powered and you really just don't know how much power they have. Or they have the little button where you'll push it and there's 4 little lights like a battery bank, and it'll tell you on there. And it's just not that accurate. For a battery bank, I don't really care. But for something like this, I want to know how much battery I have, how much time I have left. So this little LCD screen is a nice addition. Then on the side here, we have these 3 things here. We've got the button, which turns it on and also helps with navigating the screen here. This is the little up and down for brightness and also temperature of the light. And then we have the charger. It comes with an included USB-C cable. I actually use this cable most of the time. I have a longer cable at home that I charge my computer with. That worked just fine too, but that it comes with the cable is really nice, so you can have an extra. And if you are going to keep it in this box, or if you're going to put it in a case of its own, you can always keep the charger with it. And then the last thing in here is this little tripod mount, or hot shoe mount, I should say. So on the bottom here, we have the tripod mount. So if you have a tripod, you could just stick this on top of the tripod. It's the standard 1/4 inch, and just screw it on, and you could just use that if you want to have like some higher lighting or something like that. But this is for if you want to attach it directly to a camera. So this bottom one here adjusts so you can tighten it down, and then loosen so you can take it off, and then you just stick that on the light itself. So I have my Fuji X-T3 here, and I'll show you how it works. So you take the little tab off there. You can either screw this in here first, or you can put it on there first and then screw it on. Just for sake of so you can see, I'll show you this way. So this slides in here, and then you tighten this up. Because right now, if you were using it, it would just come off. Like if you tilted your camera that way, it's just gonna fall off. But if you tighten it here like that, it's stuck on there and it's not going to come off. So then you can just put the light on here. Not perfect when you do it this way because you want the light to be facing the correct way. Like right now, if I tightened it all the way, as you can see, it's turned not the way I want it. So just for sake of showing, because normally I would put this on first and then put this on, I guess I can just show you. So you can tighten it like that, and get that off of there, and then twist it to where you need it to be. Something to note is when you do have it in this mode, I'll show you the sideways angle here. So the light obviously comes out at an angle or something like that. So with a smaller lens like this, it isn't a big deal. But some wide angle lenses and obviously longer lenses, they're a lot bigger, they're a lot longer. They could come out to even as far as here. So if you had like a wide angle lens where it came all the way out to here, and it's really wide, so you're seeing something that's right in front of you, and you're using the light, the lens could cast a shadow on the subject of what you're taking your photo of. So if you have a long lens and it's coming here, there could be like a weird little like shadow, like a little oval in the front of your image, and you don't want that. So that's something to note. Test it out before you go out shooting with it. You can kind of get around it by being crafty or zooming in a little bit or in post-production, but it's not ideal. So if you have a longer lens, you might want to test it out and see. You may need to put the light on a tripod, or you might be able to get an extender to make this taller, or a bracket or something like that. But just something to note, because you don't want those awkward little shadows. Everything well lit, and then there's this weird little shadow in the back. So we will take this off now. Something I did notice in testing, and also it just kind of happened too, is that the little padding here isn't the most durable. So get a better shot at that. You can see that it's already kind of spun around a little bit, and there's like adhesive that attaches it. I'm pretty used to this with tripod mounts in general. Typically they're not the best. They're like, sometimes they're cork and they just kind of shred. So this is the same as that. It doesn't make it better, but be ready for that to potentially come off. And then as you can see the bottom of the camera here, I've never had a camera that didn't kind of get scuffed up around the tripod mount. So be ready for this to potentially look like that. And that is something I noticed when you do attach it to a tripod, because it's so wide, like, I don't know what it is, but tripod mounts that are, especially ones that are metal, can kind of rub this up. I was really careful because I wanted to keep this in good shape, but you might get, scratches and stuff like that on this. And the finish on this is really nice. It's metal, it's matte black, and it looks really nice. Like, they did a good job with the design of it, and like the rounded sides. It's kind of like the size of a phone. It's not as tall, obviously, but it's like, it fits in your palm. It's a good size. It looks nice. And getting it all scratched up on the bottom, it wouldn't affect usage, but it wouldn't look that great. So we'll move on to, I'll get this camera out of the way here. And we'll move on to the light itself and how you use it and all that fun stuff. So we have the light here. Well, you power it on by holding this blue button here. So if you hold that, it's hard to see, like I said, because of the light, but you can see that the light is on now. And we have this LCD panel here that it has a bunch of stuff on it. So it's got your battery there, and then when it's on, it tells you how much time you have left at your current settings. So if I were to turn this down, you can see the battery life going up there. So if you were on your lowest setting, which is 1%, online it says that you'll get over 16 hours or 16 hours of battery. So as it says 16 there right now. I didn't test 16 hours because I couldn't just leave it on for 16 hours. I didn't feel comfortable doing that. But I did test it at 100%. I left it on the whole time and just to see when it would die. And it lasted an hour, 11 minutes, and 36 seconds, which is very good in my opinion. I know that it says 1.3 hours right now. So that's, it kind of varied too. Like in the beginning it said about that, and then it went down lower than what it should be. And then at the end, it said 4 minutes for about, I want to say it was probably 10 or 15 minutes. So it's not completely accurate, but it's pretty close, so you can rely on that number. But overall, very happy with the battery. I mean, this is putting out a lot of light. I know it's kind of hard to see with the lighting setup we have here, but you can see how whited out my hand is there from that. And being able to adjust it so easily too, like I'm bringing it down now and then bringing it back up again. Really easy to do, and it goes in multiples of 5. So 55, 45, 40, and then all the way down you get down to 5%, and then it goes down to 1%. And that's the low where you're supposed to be able to get 16 hours out of it. But if you hit that button one more time, you're now adjusting the color temperature. So it goes all the way from 3200 to 5600. So the 3200 will go down to the bottom end there. It's kind of like a golden. I brought this piece of paper because I thought you might be able to see kind of the difference, but it's kind of hard to see. And then if you go all the way up towards 5600, it gets more blue. And I'm not sure if you can really see that, but it goes kind of from like a nice warm light to more of like an LED light. And it's very noticeable when you're not in perfect lighting. Like if this is one of the brighter lights in the room, it's really noticeable. And they did a really good job with it, to be honest. It has a pretty good range. And you never know when you're going to want to switch the color temperature, especially for like a portrait or something like that. So that's a nice inclusion, and toggling between the two is easy. I found myself changing the brightness a lot more than I did changing the color temperature, because it's not something you're gonna change all the time, but having the option is really great to be able to do that. Like I said, especially if this is the only light in the room. Let me put that all the way up and see if you can kind of see that that's like a yellow light. And then I'm gonna switch it towards the blue light now. If you look on the black there, you can kind of see that that's more of like an LED white light. And then closer towards the yellow. When I did that before, I'm not sure I was at 100%, and that definitely affects, how much light you're getting. So you can see it go from kind of golden to whitish, blue LED light there. And it is, I have to admit, I'm catching myself playing with it right now. It is fun to play with, but the more you use it when you're not, supposed to be using it, the less battery you're going to get. Another thing that it says on their site, I never had this happen to me, but in the little battery indicator there, if it's too hot, it'll say hot, and if it's too cold, it'll say cold. So if you're out in the winter and you're using it and it's just too cold, like the battery is getting too cold and it's going to affect how long the battery lasts, it'll say cold there, and then you'll know you need to warm it up, otherwise it's going to affect your battery. And if it's too hot, it'll do the same thing, except it'll say warm. I know that cold affects your battery negatively. I don't know what warm does, but I assume it will have an effect, especially because if it's telling you, it could be overheating, and you obviously don't want that. But that's a nice inclusion, because obviously if you're a photographer or videographer and you're traveling, you're going to go to cold places, you're going to go to warm places. So knowing when your equipment, like knowing what it's doing, is important to make sure that you're able to use it and that everything works how it's supposed to work. Another thing that I'm going to turn this off real quick. Another thing that I like about this is obviously you have the battery power, but you can plug it in using the USB-C and just use it powered like that. So let's say you're out somewhere and you're using it all day, but you're near an outlet and it dies. You can continue to use it so long as you have a plug to plug it into. You could plug it in with a battery bank. That'll probably run through the battery bank pretty quickly. But if you have an outlet nearby, just plug it in and it's going to work just as well as it worked before. When the battery was really low, I didn't notice that the light was any less bright either. So the brightness that I got at 100% to my naked eye was the same as the brightness I got at, when it was at 1%. So that's, a great shout from us, because a lot of times you see not even just lighting like a Lume Cube, you see battery banks that don't charge as much at the end of their cycle as they do in the beginning. So that's great for lighting, especially for continuity reasons. You don't want the beginning of your shots or whatever you're shooting to be brighter than the end being darker, because then you might not notice it as it's happening if it was gradual, but with this light that was not an issue, at least to my naked eye, and I took a photo before and after, and it looked good to me. So I will show you this now. This is kind of like a little diffuser to spread out the light, and it also acts as a case. So if you're stowing this will fit in your pocket, or in a liner pocket of a bag, or it'll fit anywhere you can fit your phone. It's a little wider than a phone. If you have a case, it's probably about the same size as your phone with the case. So it'll fit anywhere your phone will fit, or if you have a bigger wallet, anywhere your wallet will fit. If your camera bag or your camera case has a zippered pocket, you could just slide it in there, and it's there. And these aren't too huge either, so these will probably fit alongside it. You can you'll know if you need these though. Like if you have a computer that charges using USB-C, you don't need these, so you don't need to bring them. And then you just have to bring this. Well, and if you're not going to put it on top of your camera, I should say as well, you don't need this. If you want to put it on top of your camera, you obviously need to bring this, or if you have another setup like a tripod or something, then that negates the use for this. But this is so small, you might as well bring it. But getting into different uses for this panel, I think that when you're traveling, you never know when you're going to need more light, and you don't want to have to bring a big flash. Like some flashes I have, they're about, let me give you a size, it's like that big. Like it's a big flash and it takes up a lot of room. This is small and it's light, and it can fit anywhere. Like you could put this in your sling, you could put this in your camera bag, you could really put it anywhere. So having extra light while you're traveling is very nice. You don't know when you're going to need it, and when you need it, you're going to wish you had it. Something that I used it for is macro photography, especially when it's getting darker. I didn't necessarily use it to light the shot, but I used it to nail the focus. Because with macro photography, if you're getting, a really close-up photo and, detail in a church, or if you're out in the wilderness and you want to get a photo of a plant or, an insect or something like that, you don't always have perfect light to focus. And if you have the panel go, you could just pop it on top of your camera or even hold it with your hand like that, and then you can focus the lens and make sure that you nail the focus, turn off the light, and get the shot, because with macro photography, you really want to nail that focus. Another thing that I used it for is to put people into long exposures, or just add a different dynamic to a long exposure shot. So normally with a long exposure, it's you're getting light trails and stuff like that, but sometimes it's fun to put a person into that photo. So if you have a little bit of light, it's easier to do that because your shutter speed isn't as long. So as long as the person is close enough to you to where they're getting hit by this, you can turn a 10-second exposure into something more manageable where someone can stay still, a couple seconds or something like that. So the little bit of extra light in that case is very handy. And just in general, sometimes you need more light. Like if you're in somewhere that doesn't have any lighting and the sun is going down and like you want to get an architectural shot or something like that, just a little bit of extra light can make a shot that might take you a really long time to get through focusing and a really long exposure, and then it's messed up and then you got to redo it. A little bit of extra light can just help the process go quicker. So it's just a very, it's a nice thing to have in your pocket. And if you don't think that you need one this big, there is a smaller one. It's called the Panel Mini, which shares a lot of the same features, but it doesn't have as much brightness and it's obviously smaller. So that is an option for you. And also there is another one on the higher end that is the RGB Panel Pro. And that one has different colors, and I think it's a little bit brighter as well. So you have options on both ends of this light, but this one is perfect. It fits in your pocket. It has a good amount of light, and it really is good in different travel situations, or even for just, if you're taking a photo walk where you live. So a lot of options with this thing, and it'll fit in your pocket, or you could just leave it in the box like I have and slide it in. Like, it doesn't have a huge form factor. It is obviously much bigger than the light itself. But overall, very happy with this thing, and you're not going to need it on every trip. Like if you're just doing like a light trip, you're taking a plane for the weekend, like you probably don't need to bring this. But if photography is the main part of your trip, and obviously if you're a videographer, having a light is important too. Just sliding it in your bag, you're gonna be, at some point you'll be happy you brought it. If you can spare the space, that is. Sometimes you just can't. But so there you have it, the Lume Cube Panel Go. Thanks for keeping it here at Pack Hacker, your guide to smarter travel. We'll see you in the next one.